Thank you for joining us on Merit Matters, a virtual series highlighting current events, industry experts, and local community engagement. I'm your host, Tammy Berklid, Principal of Merit Construction, and today I have architect Josh Gobel of TAS in Olympia. Merit had the pleasure of working with Josh on the Capital Christian Center in Olympia, and we have a couple other projects currently in the works. And today we're going to dive into the GC architect relationship and the advantages of team build. Josh, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm excited to introduce you to our listeners. Share with me what your title is and kind of give me a broad overview of your role.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. So I am a project manager / project architect. At TAS, we have a small office, so we have 5 project managers. I'm one of the 5. We kind of wear multiple hats. We both manage the project, but we also manage the design of the project as well. And so from the project's inception all the way through its final delivery, we work with the client, all the consultants, the contractor, to make sure that we can deliver the client's dreams, I guess, if you will. And you know, that all, it really varies a lot depending on the project type and the client's delivery method that they choose. And so it's always an interesting and very varied path from that initial idea to the final product.
I love that. I think it's so important to have the continuity from the beginning. When you hand something off, it's always difficult to make sure you've conveyed everything that's been shared with you from the client. And so sometimes it's nuances, sometimes they're very clear, black and white, you know, we never want to see the color green. And sometimes it's just like, I don't like round things, you know, so,
Yeah.
and not sharing that or not having that knowledge and then kind of coming into the project later, you have to relive that with the client. And the client wants to know that they've shared something with you and then they never have to think about it again because you heard them and it's a done deal. But when we have to switch people midway through a project, it can be difficult to make sure that we have all that trickle down. So I think that's a great part of your firm. Like a really great way to deliver a product is having that continuity from beginning to end.
Yeah, we try to, you know, we always try to make it a very like personal relationship with our clients too. Like you're not hiring us just for a professional service. It is a relationship, and all relationships I think benefit better from, as best communication as you can kind of create. And so, establishing a personal relationship with your client, whether it's an individual or, a developer, a homeowner, a commercial tenant that's going into a 2I space, or a group, a board, or a state agency, or anything. There's always somebody that you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, and maybe you can relate to them on an individual, personal level, and establish good communication early on. I think that goes a long way when issues arise. Issues always arise, and if there's that mutual respect as for you and the person you're working with as just individuals, I think it's a lot easier to work through those problems.
I think that's such a great point. And what I say about that is I always say that construction moves at the speed of trust.
Yeah.
And if you don't have trust with the people that you're working with, it's a slow, difficult process, because everyone's like kind of countering back and forth and trying to see if they can trust what the other person's saying. Maybe they need to get a different engineer involved to make sure, or a second opinion or whatever. So I totally agree with you that if you can develop a relationship with the people that are on your team, your design team, your contractor, and the owner, where you all believe in each other, and like you said, mutual respect, it's going to move faster. It's going to move, when you and I are having a conversation, I feel like there's a mutual respect, and there's a question like, what do you think about this? Give me your honest opinion. And that's it. We're done then. Like, we've both shared where we're at. We respect where each other are coming from, and we can make a decision based on the fact that we trust each other. And I think that is so key to a successful project. What would you say, just all contractors, how do you feel like you interact with them throughout a project? What's kind of the process for you?
It's, of course, it depends on the project, but like our preferred method is a team build or design build kind of process where the contractor is involved early on. The minute we have kind of a concept of what the building is going to be, and even sometimes before that, sitting down with the contracting team and the owner and ourselves and to talk about, right off the bat, like here's our concept, here's our plan for construction type, here's how we think, this building's going to come together, and having that kind of those conversations throughout the whole process, so you can get immediate feedback from the contracting team is in my opinion the best way to go, because I think through that collaboration early on and through that establishing those communications early on, it's the best way to be innovative as a group. It allows you to think through ways of, constructability issues that, I might not see because I'm not on site, swinging a hammer. And the construction crew is, and they're relaying that back to, the project manager for the construction company, that, this all from the super to the owner, that gets relayed back then to the architect in those meetings and those coordination meetings. And I think as long as we can establish that communication and that collaboration early on, it tends to lead to a more successful project, in my opinion, because it also allows us to kind of place value on certain aspects. Like if the contractor can say, hey, if we change the framing package to this, it's going to save us $300,000. And because we're doing that, then, that helps us with our budget, and it helps us, reinforce maybe the materials that are on the facade that the pedestrian is going to experience when they're walking by it. We can do something a little bit nicer, have a little bit better detailing in there. It's just trying to get that stuff established early on with a construction team is, I think, the most ideal. It opens up the biggest door to opportunity in the project, I think.
I think so also, and it adds so much more value from my perspective for the owner. There, like you said,
Yeah.
You're offering multiple views, multiple people with many, many years of history and experience. Why would you not want that, as opposed to limiting yourself to just whatever the architect has been exposed to up to that point in their career? But the interesting thing about working with you in particular is that you are very open and very collaborative, and you're excited about hearing what someone else has to say. And I think that sometimes there can feel like a threat to a design if you have a dream of a particular thing and a contractor comes in, and it can feel like, hey, we're not going to accomplish my design if we make that change. But I've always found you to be very open to what is best for the client, first and foremost, and secondly, what gets this project built. You can have the dream, but if it doesn't fit in the budget, then none of us are going to get to move forward. And so I just have found you to be very humble about the whole thing, and very much others focused, and project focused. And I really appreciate that about you. And I think that it's a huge win for us when we get an opportunity to choose who we're working with and work with somebody that has that type of a philosophy.
Thanks. I mean, I think, that's one of the reasons, I like working with Merit so much, is that they're open to exploring different ways of achieving, like a design goal or the intent of, the project. It's not, you're not afraid to say, hey, we understand the goal here, but I think if we could potentially do it like this, we could achieve that. And this way aligns with the budget of this project, whereas I think how it's designed currently, like we're not going to be able to achieve it. And we might not get 100% there, but we get far enough where the design intent is reached. And, there's just so many ways to design, from, especially when you start looking at like the overall detailing, and it is, one of the things that we try to do at TAS is always, be mindful of our clients' business, because typically we're working with people who is, we're designing building, either they're in the business of development or they're designing a building for their business, and there's very tight economic constraints on all these projects. And if we're not good for business, then how are we going to be able to, to be successful if our clients aren't successful? And I think, for us working with like Merit Construction, working with you all, I think you have the same understanding that in the end, we're trying to be respectful of our clients' goals, not just the design goals that they might have that the architect brings to you all, but also their economic goals of the project. And without that, those two kind of working in concert with each other, they can't be successful. And I think, the best way to be successful in that is when you are all at the table from the very beginning. Because not only do you recognize those potential issues earlier, it also reduces the amount of finger pointing back to each other. Like it's like, well, I wasn't there. If you would have brought me in earlier, I would have told you that that was a bad idea, but I didn't have that opportunity, so it's your fault. Like that. And I don't like that type of confrontation. It doesn't breed good relationships.
No, it erodes trust, and then we slow everything down, just like we were saying earlier. So I totally agree with you, and I think that's a good thing that we do it early, but that we also all have the same goals, like you talked about. And every contractor, and certainly every architect, they aren't all the same by any means. And so sometimes you go into it knowing that you're all on the same page, and sometimes that it's going to be a little bit more challenging than you expect.
Yeah, for sure.
So we talked kind of about some pros of team build and how that can benefit the owner as well as benefiting us. Describe for people, how does design bid build differ from team build?
I think the biggest difference really is how that communication relationship is with the owner. Typically on like a design bid build project, the owner has a relationship with the architect, and they go through that design process. And then it gets to a point where there is a bidding aspect where I take my documents and I say, these are ready for bid, and I entertain bids on behalf of the owner from a handful of different contractors. We open those bids, and there's different ways of determining it, but eventually the owner, based on those bids, determines who they want to move forward with in construction. And so then the owner has a relationship with that contractor. And then construction happens, and the contractor is sending request RFIs, or I'm sending them ASIs or CCDs. So these are the different kind of requests for information and architectural supplemental information, the change in construction directives, like all those things are communicated back and forth between the builder and the architect, who don't really have a personal relationship with each other unless they've worked a lot in the past. They both have a relationship with the owner. And so the problem with that, and if you look at some of the literature out there on like the design build world, like they call that lack of relationship between the architect and the contractor as being a liability gap, because they both have a relationship with the owner, and they're trying to both protect their stake in the project. When you have the owner working right off the bat with the contractor, and the architect is working right off the bat with the contractor, they're all in it together. And so it takes that kind of that liability gap and more or less makes it go away, because like we were talking about earlier, you're all in the same room from the very beginning. You're all working through the design and pricing of this project from the very beginning. And so if something comes up during construction, and stuff always comes up during construction, you have kind of that previous knowledge to lean back on, like, we made the decision to do this at this point because of these cost ramifications, or because of this design decision, and we all agreed on that's how we're going to do it. And so, and here's the outcome of that, whether it's, material prices went up, and so, but we still wanted to do it. And so there's all those kind of conversations that arise, but because you've established that communication early on, it's less contentious. Whereas if there's that liability gap between the architect and the owner, there's historically tends to be some finger pointing between the architect and the owner. And the architect shows up, but you have to do it this way because this is how we designed it. And the builder's like, yeah, but this isn't going to work. You guys don't know what you're doing. There's just that kind of those mythical stories that you hear about the confrontations between the two parties. Whereas if you're together, you're all working together, you're collaborating together. It's such a more peaceful way of going about delivering a project, I think.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it is a like a better experience, but I think there, like we talked about, there's better value for the client.
Yeah,
They're getting all of our attention spent on their project as opposed to proving who was responsible for something. And I think our goal is always you and I coming together and making a decision together about what's best for the project and then sharing that with the owner. This is where we've come. This is what we both agree on. This is what we both believe in, and sharing that information with the owner. Because, at the end of the day, they really don't want to be part of the problem. They just want to be
yeah,
presented a solution. That's what they're paying us for. Is to be the solution people, and I think we have done a good job collaborating together on several different projects, being able to come to the table with solutions. And like you said, just sharing ideas. I think we all want to be growing and getting better at our craft all the time. And so hearing from you and hearing what new products are available and what new things are being done on a different project that we weren't involved with, that helps us grow and vice versa. So I think that's a win for everybody.
yeah, I agree, definitely.
So what do you enjoy most about your role at TAS? And it doesn't have to necessarily be from the TAS side. It can be what you enjoy overall about being an architect.
I think for me, and it's changed a lot. I mean, when I started my career, I was designing and building. Like I would design something and I'd put on tool bags and go out and build it. And I did that for almost a decade of my life, and then that kind of transitioned into a little more time behind the desk, less hammer swinging. And then, which, transitioned when I moved to Washington State like 5 years ago here now. Working at TAS, I really got to see the impact of our buildings, that how they impact the community in general, and how, you know, we put up a building here in downtown Olympia that's a residential building, and it has an outdoor plaza with a restaurant that was kind of just on a big slingshot corner of cars zooming by it. And now, when you're there, um, there's this kind of sense of activity that wasn't before. There's people dining, there's people, walking about, milling about in this plaza area. There's like a new life in the community in that corner. We're doing another building right across the street from it that's also going to have a restaurant. So just that, sure, I like buildings and I like designing buildings and I like working with people. It's really fun, but in the end, it comes back to how all that stuff as together as a team of people, me being the architect, but working with the builders, working with the developers, working with the tenants that are in the building, like that kind of collective group of people working together, how impactful that could be on one block in a downtown, or if we're master planning a community, and that might take 10 years to come to fruition, but when it does, and you walk through the new tree-lined streets and you go grab a cup of coffee at a little cafe that's there, there's people out milling about and interacting with one another. I think it's that creation of community that we're able to do through the built environment that I think is the exciting part of architecture.
I love that. I know that's true because I'm working with you on a project that we have talked about those things. We have talked about changing basically a big, corner piece of property that's nothing but blackberry bushes right now in something that's going to serve the community. And I watched you like light up as we talked about what it could be and how we would see that space being used for the community. And I know that you're excited about that particular project because it serves the community. And for me, I mean, our whole goal and our mission, right in our mission statement, is about building the future of our communities. And we absolutely agree 100%. That's how we get satisfaction out of a job well done, is we changed people's lives a little bit, and now they can experience this. This was not available before. And it just takes it and makes it bigger than construction or bigger than architecture, because it provides this atmosphere and this experience for people that that memories are made around that then, right? And
Yeah,
memories are a big deal, a big part of people's lives.
yeah,
Well, I
yeah.
think it's a really cool thing. Tell me one thing that you think is maybe a misconception about architects.
People are always surprised when I tell them I'm colorblind. I think a lot of people think of architecture as, we kind of just draft things, or, we just kind of draw drawings, right, to build a building. But I don't think people realize the breadth of information that we have to kind of consider when we're working in architecture. Like, I don't think I spend any time drawing anything anymore other than the quick, pencil sketches to my staff. But it really is, I think it's one of the professions that incorporates just about all aspects of society. We're always looking at kind of the social implications, there's the economic implications, the cultural influences in an area, all these influences that we as people, as a natural environment, like how all that stuff affects a place. And then we try to take all that and then communicate that all out to, everybody who's working on a project. And it could be up to, a dozen consultants that are working on the design of a project that we're kind of managing. And making sure that all the parts and pieces go together to ensure that it's successful. And it's like, people, when I talk about architecture with people and they ask me, what is it you do? And I'm like, I'm an architect. I'm like, well, what is that? And it's just kind of like, well, think about, I like to kind of relate us to like the conductor of a symphony, right? Like we're the ones we're kind of listening to all the different voices that are influencing, all the different stakeholders, all the different, people that are actually providing work. We're kind of listening to all that and kind of making sure that all those pieces are in concert with each other in order to deliver, a project. I mean, I can't play the cello at all, but I can tell you that, like, I can look through a set of mechanical drawings and know that, that HVAC duct needs to have a fire damper going through this wall. But, it's kind of like coordinating all that stuff, or knowing that this community that's around this residential development really doesn't want multifamily apartments there. They really want to see, some more row house-like stuff that more fits with the character of their neighborhood. It's kind of like, you really have to kind of listen to everybody and make sure that all the parts and pieces are working in concert with one another, which is very tricky at times.
And so much bigger than drawing.
Yeah.
Or coloring, like
Yeah.
like you guys are spending a lot of time coloring on plans. And I would agree. I think once it's turned over into construction, I feel like that's kind of what we do as well, where we're kind of putting all the different pieces together and we're managing all the different types of, every different subcontractor and every different, it's a lot. But we still, even then, we're coming back to you and relying on you for code issues. And if constructability issue comes up, you guys are absolutely, I think a conductor is a great way to look at it. And I agree, you have a lot on your plate to be responsible for and to. I don't envy it. And I'm grateful that we get to put in a request for information and you get to figure out how to deal with it, with our assistance. I'm just glad that's one thing that we get to continue to have on the other side instead of being on the contractor.
Yeah, and it's interesting at the end of it, we are, as we put together a set of documents that, we're stamping and saying, okay, this set of documents is going to produce a building that is safe and a healthy environment for people to exhibit it, to occupy, exhibit it, to exist in and occupy. And so there's that, you always have to kind of revert back into that as kind of a foundation. It's sure, we want to design really cool looking buildings that are exciting to look at and be in and occupy, like great light coming through the space, and these all sorts of the stuff that we did in school all the time. It was like 100% of your time was just designing these really fabulous things. And then you get in the real world and you realize that, oh, that's only like 10% of my time. The rest of it is making that idea come to fruition. But you always have to kind of revert yourself back. Like, is it a good, safe, healthy environment for people to be in, whether it's someone's house or a multi-story building?
Does it make life better for the people
Yeah,
there.
it doesn't make life better. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's, you walk in our office and the first thing you see across the wall is just improving lives by design. And that's, it's not just the buildings itself that we're designing. It's that interstitial space between buildings. It's it's the community outreach that we all do. We're very active in our communities. We're like, and I think that's one of the things that TAS really aligns well with Merit is that kind of focus on community. Our making sure that the work we're doing goes beyond the work itself, that it creates an impact in the lives of the communities of people we work in.
I love that. I think that you are a great example of that at TAS, and we love working with you guys because of that.
Yeah, it's our principal Ron when he established this firm almost 10 years ago now after kind of working at some large firms in Tacoma and out in Boston. He came back to the place where he grew up, where he first started his career, and really I think, from his upbringing, it was instilled in him at an early age that, you need to kind of look beyond yourself and find ways to create value by improving the lives of the people around you. And he's very adamant about instilling that in this practice and in all the people that work within our office. Just the amount of impact you can have if everybody does something that they enjoy outside of architecture, like whether it's being on a, historical board or working for the Boys and Girls Club or whatever it is, just like find something you love to do that is kind of beyond your just job here. And, we encourage you to do that. If it takes some time out of your week to go do that for an hour or two, then by all means, please do. Like we want to expand our impact, by many people kind of having their fingers in stuff to try to, help. It's really helping those around us.
And it's walking the talk, like that he says that, but then he tells you also, not just do I encourage you to do that, but yeah, I'll pay you to do that if that's what you need to do. You can take the afternoon off and go make that happen. And that's 100% how I am about it as well. It's like, no, let's actually make it happen. And like he says, let's do it about something you're passionate about. I'm not going to tell you what you need to do. I want it to be something that you believe in. So, and then I always tell my people, let me rally around you. Like, if you have something that you believe in and you're excited about, let's talk to the rest of the team about it and maybe we can have impact. So I love,
absolutely.
I think that's great. I'm really happy to hear that. I always like to hear about cool things that our partners are doing, and it helps reinforce why I know we work so well together. There's just, like you said, there's a good alignment there. Well, thank you so much, Josh.
Yeah, thank you. It's been fun.
I'm like so happy to finally, you and I have tried to make this happen a couple times, and I'm just really glad that it worked out this time. So I really enjoyed talking with you, and I know that you did a really great job explaining. I'm really hopeful that it'll be helpful for people understanding team build.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. It was fun. It's always nice talking about our work outside of actual work.
Yeah.
It's like, why do we do this? Why is this enjoyable? Like, why do we enjoy working together? That type of stuff. It's nice. So,
yeah, we never have meetings about that. Why?
No, you don't have meetings like that. Maybe that's how we should start our meetings with our future clients.
I like it.
Just so you guys know, this is why we always work together.
That's great. I don't think it's a bad idea. All right. Well, thank you. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, thank you. Talk to you later. Bye.